Hi, I'm Joe, and today I'm going to talk about cortisol, the stress hormone. I'm going to explain what cortisol is, what it does, and I'm really going to get into chronic elevated cortisol. What are the common causes, the negative effects this can have on our health and well-being, and most importantly, what we can do to limit this. And at the end, after all the doom and gloom of the bad bits of cortisol, I will go through the benefits of cortisol and how we can use it to help with our immune system so we never get ill again, and learning so we can all learn a new language. This is aimed at me. Disclaimer, I am not actually a scientist. However, I find topics like this super fascinating, so I spend a bit of time researching, looking up papers on Tinterweb, listening to podcasts and all that stuff, so you don't have to, and I can share with you what I've learned. As always, I shall link all of my papers and resources below in the description box. Cortisol is a steroid hormone produced by the adrenal glands. These sit on top of your kidneys. Cortisol is often referred to as the stress hormone because it plays a key role in your body's response to stress. However, cortisol is not just about stress. It's also vital for many other body functions, which we shall get into. 1. It is a stress response. Cortisol is released as part of the fight or flight response if you face a particular threat or challenge. This release helps the body respond, increasing energy levels, alertness, and blood sugar, so you can run away. 2. Regulates metabolism, helps break down fats, proteins, carbohydrates to produce energy. 3. Controls inflammation and regulates the immune system to prevent overreaction, potentially stopping symptoms getting worse. 4. Maintains blood pressure and cardiovascular function. 5. It supports with your sleep cycle. Cortisol levels naturally rise in the morning to help you get out of bed and then fall again at night so you can go to sleep. By the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Cortisol is regulated by the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. That only took me about 500 times to say correctly. From now on, I'm going to refer to that as HPA. The HPA is a signal that connects 3 areas in your body. The hypothalamus, which is towards the back of your head, that signals the pituitary gland, which sits in the roof of your mouth, right at the back. The pituitary gland signals the adrenal gland, which sits just above your kidneys, and that releases cortisol. Once enough cortisol is released, it signals itself to stop releasing cortisol, and that is the negative feedback loop. You want it to stop. So it is kind of obvious why cortisol is important. It helps your body handle challenges, threats, maintain balance, and that's what we need. It's a balance. Too much or too little can disrupt the body system, and that can lead to health problems. When you have normal cortisol levels, your body goes in a nice rhythm, and this is called the diurnal cycle, peaking in the morning and then dropping off at night. You can have low cortisol levels from adrenal insufficiency. Your body is leaking out cortisol, so it's not going where it's needed. The health effects of having low cortisol levels are fatigue and low energy, a low blood pressure, so you feel dizzy and faint, a poor stress tolerance, unintentional weight loss, and salt cravings due to disrupted sodium regulation, salt in your body. And at the other end of the spectrum, we have chronic elevated cortisol. First, let's talk about the common causes. Chronic elevated cortisol, prolonged stress. So this is stress that's lasting more than 2, 3, 4 days, not the little peaks in stress that we get in our everyday lives. Traffic, a presentation, for me, what I've got to cook for dinner. However, I do feel like people are stressed quite a lot of the time. It's becoming a norm, and it's even celebrated a little bit. Let's just see what happens when it gets out of control. We can split these causes into 6 different categories. Psychological stress. So things like work stress. Perhaps you work with a load of dickheads. You've got a really high pressure job, or you work really long hours and don't get to spend time with your family. Financial stress. Perhaps you don't earn enough. Relationship problems. Maybe you're not in the best relationship, or you've just gone through a horrendous breakup. Chronic anxiety or depression. Mental health disorders can keep that HPA axis activated. If you've experienced trauma and it's unresolved, or you suffer with PTSD, if you keep getting triggered, you're going to have a continuously elevated cortisol level. Physical stress. If you have a chronic illness, like an autoimmune disease, an infection, like inflammations that keep the immune system active, chronic pain conditions such as arthritis. These are stressors for your body. Or perhaps you've just got injured, or you're getting over a surgery. This is going to add stress to your body. Sleep issues. If you suffer with insomnia or sleep apnea, your sleep cycle is going to be messed up, therefore keeping your cortisol levels high, on alert. Also, if you do shift work, this will disrupt that natural cortisol cycle of it being higher in the morning and dropping at night. It's all going to be backwards and forwards. Some lifestyle factors. A poor diet. Things like eating lots of sugary foods, processed foods, caffeine. These will all cause imbalances in your cortisol levels. A lack of physical activity. A sedentary lifestyle is not good for you or stress. Excessive exercise. Yeah, you can go the other way and just stress your body out because you're not recovering. And substance use. Alcohol, drugs, nicotine all worsen your body's stress response. Hormonal and medical conditions. Cushing's syndrome, a rare condition caused by the overproduction of cortisol. Thyroid disorders and polycystic ovary syndrome. If you have these, you will experience cortisol imbalances. Persistent environmental stressors. Noise pollution. Living in loud, chaotic environments. Social isolation. A lack of social support can contribute to stress. And if you've lived through a natural disaster, or you're living in a war zone. So if you suffer with any of these causes, it's important to address the root of the problem, trying to manage stress, improving sleep, or treating medical conditions. I'll get more into that in a minute. If cortisol does remain high for long periods due to ongoing stress, chronic stress, it can lead to harmful effects. And I'm going to go through a list here. Learning and memory. It's just harder to remember stuff. You have brain fog. Health and immune function. It weakens the immune system, so you're more likely to get ill, therefore getting more stressed. May increase the chances of going grey prematurely. Genes will have an effect on this as well, but stress will actually make you grey earlier, which I thought was a myth. Sleep issues. Being chronically stressed is going to affect your sleep, causing insomnia or poor levels of sleep, which will potentially lead to fatigue, irritability, and reduced mental clarity. Emotional health. You're more likely to feel anxious and depressed. And potential physical differences in males and females. In males, chronic high levels of cortisol can reduce testosterone levels, impacting libido and muscle mass. In females, it can make PMS worse and lower fertility. So we don't really want to have chronic levels of cortisol in our system if at all possible. I am aware some of these causes are completely unpreventable and hard to tackle, if not impossible. However, some are. We need to manage and alleviate having chronic levels of cortisol in our system, and that involves addressing the root cause. This will improve our overall health and well-being and promote healthy stress responses. Here are 10 practical strategies you can try. Stress management techniques. Reducing stress is the foundation of lowering cortisol. Mindfulness and meditation. You can try some deep breathing exercises like Wim Hof or yoga. Studies show that consistent meditation can lower cortisol levels over a prolonged period of time. Cognitive behavioural therapy. Sometimes a therapeutic approach is best to help reframe those negative thought patterns. Time management. Prioritise tasks and avoid overcommitting, especially if you are in a particularly stressful period. Improve sleep quality. Try to set a sleep schedule so you're aiming for at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. And we want good quality sleep. And you can start first thing in the morning. As soon as you get up, as close as you can to that time, you need to get outside and get some sunlight in your eyes. Don't look at the sun directly, and don't wear sunglasses because that won't work. This will really help set your circadian rhythm to help you feel awake and to feel sleepy later on. You can also do some NSDR, non-sleep deep rest, which helps with sleep and also helps with the greying process. If you want to learn more about this, give this a watch. Huberman goes on about how you can boost your energy and immune system with cortisol and adrenaline. I'll also link it below. Create a sleep-friendly environment. It's time to wind down. Before you go to bed, maybe 1 or 2 hours before you're planning to go to sleep, turn the lights down, nice and dim, reduce the noise, be calm, and avoid stimulants before bed. So no caffeine, ideally after noon, 12, you don't want to be having any caffeine. Screen time, limit that. If you have to go on your phone, put the screen on red and that will help limit the blue light. Optimize nutrition. Certain foods and eating habits can help regulate cortisol levels. You can adopt a balanced diet by eating whole natural foods, lean proteins, healthy fats, and complex carbohydrates. That means reducing sugar and ultra-processed food. Also try to include anti-inflammatory foods, things such as fatty fish, nuts, seeds, and leafy greens. Stay hydrated. Physical activity. Moderate exercise. Depending on your age and your sex, you want to be moving your body a few times a week. Things like weight training, running, yoga, and if you can, train in the morning because that is when your cortisol is already at its peak. And as I've mentioned before, avoid overtraining because this can cause stress if you're not recovered. Build some social connections. Spend time with your loved ones. And if you have no loved ones, join groups or communities. There's loads on Facebook or the internet. Supplements and herbal remedies. Now, I'm not a doctor and I don't really know about this stuff, but this is what I found online that can help naturally reduce your cortisol levels. Ashwagandha, omega-3 fatty acids, and magnesium manage underlying health conditions. If you suffer with chronic pain, sleep apnea, or you're anxious or depressed, it's worth seeking out medical advice and potentially getting some help with that. Limit unnatural stimulants, things such as alcohol, drugs, and nicotine. Remember to take breaks and rest. Even a 5-minute break, just a little get up, shake your body, get outside, a little bit of fresh air. Remember, your body is not a machine. It needs rest. And now and again, treat yourself to a little holiday. Something that I find particularly useful because it's very visual is to track your progress. It might be quite handy to keep a journal so you can have a look at your progress, check your diet, your sleep, your exercise. It's all really helpful and motivating to track your progress and see how far you're going. Time to talk about the good stuff. Yay! What is adaptive cortisol? Adaptive cortisol is the short-term release of cortisol in response to a stress or a challenge. It helps the body adapt and change and maintain stability, a process known as allostasis. When it is released in these short, controlled amounts, it can enhance performance, support survival, and promotes recovery. So how does adaptive cortisol work? First, there is a stimulus or an action. Then the cortisol is released. Then there is a response and recovery. Here are some examples of adaptive cortisol in action. During exercise, the action being going for a run or weight training. The response, cortisol rises to mobilize glucose and fats for energy and endurance. And the benefit, enhances performance and supports recovery. Learning and memory. The action being studying, learning something new, or solving a challenging problem. The response, cortisol rises, enhancing focus and helping you remember all of that information. The benefit, improving cognitive performance. Waking up in the morning. The action being waking up in the morning. The response, cortisol rises, providing energy and alertness for your day. The benefit of this is that it makes you feel awake, transitioning from sleep to wakefulness. Remember to get sunlight in your eyes as early as you can for extra benefits and set your circadian rhythm. Facing acute stress. The action could be maybe you've got to give a presentation or you're in a slightly dangerous situation. The response, you guessed it, cortisol rises, providing energy, increasing blood pressure and sharpening focus. The benefit, enhances decision making. Perhaps you've got to make it up as you go along. Increases physical stamina so you can run away, fighting infection and healing. The action being perhaps you've got injured in your latest football match. Response, cortisol rises. And the benefit, the rise in cortisol supports controlled inflammation, aiding recovery without harming healthy tissue. So we do need cortisol. It's not all bad. In fact, It's good when it comes to exercise, a threat, regulating metabolism, maintaining blood pressure, learning, fighting illness, and waking up. It's vital that we keep the negative looping and don't find ourselves in a positive feedback loop where cortisol is constantly being drip fed to us. If you enjoyed this video, I think you're going to like this one, where I tracked my mood every day for a year. Thanks for watching. Please give me a thumbs up. Perhaps put in the comments below how you manage your stress. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell. You'll be notified when I release a new video, which happens to be every Sunday at 12.